Alright people, I am back and today I am going to talk about some things pertaining to the leaked Street Fighter 6 roster. I know you're probably thinking, bro, you are late as hell, but listen, I do not want to go over these leaks bit by bit like they're new. In fact, I didn't want to talk about them when they happened because I figured everyone who cares to see this has already seen it. We don't know what a lot of the new characters' names are or what they do or play like, so any of it leaking doesn't really diminish any excitement. So I didn't really see where the talking point was beyond just saying, here's the leaked roster, look. But now, I've been seeing a thought about this leak gain in popularity. A thought that I don't like. In fact, it's a downright evil thought. And that thought is, what if the leaked roster we see isn't the base roster? What if it's the base roster and the first wave of DLC characters? Well, sir, that would be pain. This, of course, is a completely valid train of thought, but a horrible one. Not horrible as in wrong, but horrible as in just a bad reality. And I'll explain why. The roster we see is 22 characters, which is very good. Your super typical refuse to leave the 90s fighting game will more times than not have 16 characters. This is archaic. It's not enough, it's old news, and it needs to stop. But back on track, if we take that 22 character roster and assume the first wave of DLC is a cast of 6 fighters, as it so often is, then that 22 character base roster becomes your typical 16. The numbers are adding up, unfortunately. Even when you look at the layout of the leaked roster concept art, we have 8 gimme characters up top. Ryu, that's a gimme. Chun-Li, that's a gimme. Ken, gimme. Guile, Zangief, Dhalsim, Honda, Blanca, all classic, all gimmies. At the bottom, you have 8 newcomers, with Luke being the only character we've seen before Street Fighter 6. And he was literally the last character in 5, so we're hardly all that familiar with them. So 8 classic and 8 newcomers. Oh no, did you do the math? We're already at 16, but who's in the middle? There are 6 returning characters, and those 6 characters happen to be placed together. Almost like they go together in some sort of bundle. And if my very unfortunate point hasn't already been made, look at those 6 characters. Do you maybe see a couple who would guarantee a buck or two for Capcom? That's Cammy. That's Juri. That's Akuma. Do you see them? So if I were selling a 6 character bundle and I wanted to make sure it got bought, what would I do? I make 3 of those characters extremely desirable, because you can probably purchase these characters individually as well. But if you're already buying 3 of them, you're thinking, well, if I'm gonna get 3, I might as well get all 6 of them at a little discount, right? You know? Everything is just adding up here in the worst of ways. Now you might be thinking, Waifu Selector, chill out, bro. You're a fucking idiot. What is the big deal about a 16 character roster? Well, listen, fighting games already have a hard time justifying the full-bodied $60, soon to be $70 price tag that comes attached to them. One more time for the people in the back. Fighting games have a hard time justifying their price. This is because all too often does the entire experience basically boil down to fight people online or fight an AI for no reward and no reason. That is not worth $60 or even $70, even for someone like me who will buy it regardless. Just because I'm stupid enough to buy it doesn't mean it's worth it. Guilty Gear Strive came out last year, Great fighting game, beautiful art style, beautiful animations. I bought it full price and I'm not mad. But that shit wasn't worth $60. I mean, I knew that before I bought it, but still, the audacity that it had to even be priced that high. It's a $40 game in value, and not strictly because of a 16 character base roster, but that doesn't help. But another thing that factors in is a lack of game modes and just a general lack of content. Again, it's this very 90s mentality and approach to fighting games where if you don't want to prove you're the very best player and crush all your online opponents under your boots in sweaty ranked matches, there's nothing for you to do. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, there's plenty of games that are purely online competition with nothing else to do. You're right, but most of them are free. And when they're not, even less of them would dare to pretend that they're worth $60. Well, Battlefield 2042 did. But seeing as it's just blowing the franchise and is on the verge of being abandoned, I don't really feel like they're a beacon to aspire toward. But listen, along with a ton of other fighting games, Street Fighter has had this content problem for a long time. And with their inclusion of the new World Tour mode that may possibly be accompanied by a traditional arcade mode that hopefully rewards you decently with the character story at least, I thought it looked like Street Fighter is heading in the right direction. And to be clear, I still think that, because they are 100% heading in the right direction. Even just changing the default looks of long-standing characters like Ryu, Cammy, and Guile somewhat dramatically is a nice symbolic step out of the 90s finally. And hopefully the World Tour mode is fairly content rich, but the addition of the new modern controls option, the switch to a more realistic art style after all these years, all these things are beautiful steps in the right direction. And I don't think the game will be bad or too bogged down at all by its possible 16 character roster. But it is a touch disappointing. That's right. I've done all this talking to say one aspect of Street Fighter 6 might be a touch disappointing. What a hot take. But yeah, Street Fighter 5 launched with 16 characters, and don't get me wrong, that game had other content issues too, but I remember when it came out and being disappointed with the amount of characters. But outside of the amount, specifically in Street Fighter 5's case, the roster was just weak, Certainly weaker than even the possible 16 character roster for 6, if it is indeed going to be 8 classic and 8 newcomers, because the excitement of 8 all new characters to get to know and play with, well, 7 since we know Luke, but having all those new toys to get to know and fresh, actually revitalized versions of older characters that feel familiar to fall back on, that makes for a much more exciting roster. Street Fighter 5 only had 4 new characters at launch, and old characters weren't really revitalized. They were just themselves again. And that's another good step out of the 90s for 6. Guys, Ryu and Chun-Li have new moves. They actually gave them new moves. It's fucking crazy. So yeah, overall, I'm super fucking positive. I can't emphasize this enough. Super fucking positive about everything we're seeing about Street Fighter 6, but I still hope we get a more modern sized roster at the beginning. So yeah, that's more or less all I wanted to say. Oh, and DNF Duel is coming out soon, another ArcSys game with a 16 character roster. You guessed it, it's going for $50. That game will not be worth $50, I promise. But I'm gonna buy it anyway. So yeah, and before I leave, thanks to everyone watching. If you subscribe on YouTube or follow on Instagram, follow on Twitter, thanks a lot. If you don't, my name is Waifu Bellector, all one word, on Instagram and Twitter. On Twitter, I'm tweeting about games and shit. On Instagram, I'm posting waifus. And on YouTube, I'm Waifu Belector, but it's 2 words, and I'm doing this. These videos are always available in their entirety on both Instagram and YouTube, but yeah, thank you to everyone who follows and subs and whatever. Until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I want a 22 character roster. Goodbye.